Welcome to Renew Education. This is probably got to be one of the most important things we do at Renew. This is one of the things I teach doctors quite a bit when I'm teaching for implant companies or in our internal offices about. And this is so important that I would say this is probably the number one or the top three documents or procedures that we do that is very unique. It is something I developed over the years because what I've seen over the years is that treatment plans get started and they don't always have a clear goal or end. And the reason why that happens is because during the treatment, something has changed. Something happened that was kind of not foreseen or wasn't really fully evaluated or understood before the treatment started. So what this document is about what you start with. Where's your starting point? Because dentistry, like I say, is expensive and time consuming when you're dealing with implants, bone grafts, sinus lifts, everything. I mean, it's when you get into full mouth reconstruction, rehabilitation that we do, even a single tooth implant, it can take 8-10 months to do and get going. Bone is a very slow growing tissue. And you can have a very good functional result, but if you don't have a good cosmetic result, you got a problem. And sometimes you have to look at where your starting point is. When you look at how things end, you can always look at how they begin and learn from that. So this is a document that's taken me years to look at the categories and try to better understand what is it about in each category family can we use as a predictive point. So I put it online for all patients and anybody, doctors, they could see it, whatever. It's not something I would ever charge for, even though maybe I should, but it doesn't matter. The point is that you at home, patient, could actually utilize the document before scheduling an appointment or understand what we would actually do at your first appointment to truly try to understand where you've been and where you are, because that's going to be indicative of probably where you're going to go. If you're a smoker, you lost your teeth due to periodontal disease, that's going to be indicative of you losing the implants because you have periimplantitis, you have lupus, etc., etc. You have bad biting, hard, strong jaw. You break your natural teeth, you'll probably break a lot of dentistry that we do. I don't want you to be unaware of those possibilities. And like I said, it's expensive and time consuming to get into full mouth rehabilitation. So we're looking at the treatment planning assessment that we do. This is just a quick overview of those categories. And it'd be very, very helpful to kind of understand these. I'm going to go a little bit more in detail of the categories, but let's take a look real quick at those categories. The categories end up as these gradations from green to red. So it tells us, are you really in a bad situation that we cannot overcome certain aspects of your treatment plan because of where you're starting. If you're starting in the red, is there a point to start? Like, do you even want to start? And then out of the four categories, we come up with kind of an overall idea of where it will possibly be in that particular category. Some people don't care about a cosmetic situation if it's in a molar area, which is totally valid, right? You don't care that much the further back in their mouth about cosmetics, but certainly you do in the front, especially where there's a smile. Or you may not be aware of the bone characteristics. Excuse me. So here is a simple way to kind of evaluate that. Here's the four categories. The four categories are broken down with smile. That's always the first. People want to look good. So that's our biggest concern usually. Um, my as a rehabilitation kind of full mouth arch person, I'm mostly concerned about function, but patients don't care as much about function because they don't know enough about function. They know they want to chew, but if it doesn't look good, they complain, they don't like it, whatever. I'd rather tell them, look, it's not going to look good, but it'll be functional, and these are the reasons why, and you can decide whether you give up your idea of around the cosmetic side of it, or like I said, the cosmetics may not matter. The next category, so here we have smile characteristics, and like I said, I'm going to go through detail on other videos about each one of these listed items that we look at. So you could do this at home. Smile characteristics, a lot of this you could do at home just looking at the difficulty of, let's say, an orthodontic situation or discoloration. We're trying to match a front tooth or something. Tissue thickness might be difficult. Lip line you would understand. A lot of those you would understand. So that's something you could do at home, and please watch the other videos if you're inclined to do so. The next category would be bone evaluation. So bone evaluation you probably could not do at home unless you had a CT scan that you can upload on your own computer and you understand enough about x-ray technology. You could possibly get through some of this stuff as well. Not many people have that, but if you have that, you're inclined to do so. Like I said, save you time and money by doing it yourself. The next thing would be bite characteristics. This is also a category that people are not very familiar with. Even dentists are not familiar enough with this subject. And I wish they would educate the patient more. But one of the biggest problems we have in dentistry around bite characteristics is that the bite has to do with how strong your jaw actually is. If your jaw is very, very strong, your bite force is very, very strong, and it can overpower your natural teeth and it can overpower the dentistry done. So when things are broken and I hear people complain, oh, that was a bad dentist, that was a bad laboratory or a bad whatever, I go, no, it wasn't. It was your jaw is just too strong. The dentistry cannot hold up to it. You know, I always say, if you could break what God gave you, meaning the original thing that is evolved to work in your mouth for possibly a lifetime, how would you ever expect that dentistry, man-made something or whatever here that hasn't evolved for that long, be stronger or better? That's just impossible, you know. The only one given thing I would say is possibly a metal crown, but people don't want metal crowns in the front anyway. But you get the idea. So you have to look at how strong somebody's jaw is. I actually cannot measure that. That's a problem. I can measure your arm muscle if we had weights and you can only lift 50 pounds or you lift 150 pounds. Then I know the 150-pound guy is a lot stronger in that arm muscle. I cannot do that with your jaw. And typically the patient, and most likely the patient, has no awareness as to how strong their jaw actually is. So this is extremely important for longevity, and it's very difficult to control the strength of that jaw. So that's a very difficult scenario that we grapple with all the time. But here it's very important to look at those aspects to see the patient is aware of the bite characteristics that they bring to the table, which will ultimately affect the strength of the prosthetic and the longevity of the prosthetic that's being done, whether it's one tooth or 12 teeth at a time. The last area is pretty self-explanatory almost. You have to know how healthy you are. So medical dental history and medical dental health is so important here, because if you get into implants, you have to have a biological event to occur, meaning you have to have bone be able to heal to the implant. People say, did the implant take? I don't really use that language, but I understand what they're saying. It's not does it take, it's do you heal well enough? Most implants are pretty much the same. We've had this technology for over 50 years. This is not new. And but the mouth bone in particular is very touchy. And the unique part about implants, dental implants, is it crosses the tissue barrier, meaning it's transmucosal, or it comes from the inside of where you are in your body in the bone to the outside of your body, which is where your teeth are exposed. If you think of knees and hip implants, they're completely internal. They're not crossing out your leg or your hip or your whatever it is. They're not doing that. So we have a very unique environment with a lot of bacteria and a lot of forces banging on things, and it is a challenge, but you should be able to heal on that implant. If you don't have the capacity to heal because you had cancer radiation, you are have a chronic autoimmune disease, you know, like I said, mention lupus, or you're diabetic, you don't heal that well. It might show up in the bone in the jaw. It may not show up as well as osteoporosis. May not show up everywhere in your body. It might show up in the jaw. It might show up somewhere as a starting point, and things are just kind of indicatively getting worse. So it's a very difficult situation, but you should know your own health. If you don't know, then go to the doctor, I guess. But here, you should also be aware of certain drugs can be very harmful to your body. I have bisphosphonate drugs, for instance, and that means Fosamax, Benevas, or whatever's that are bone density drugs, but they are very detrimental to surgery in the mouth. So you don't want to be doing that. So join us and look at these categories. Spend some time if you can. The better patient is a better informed, knowledgeable patient. We would love that. Spend all the time you like. Watch the other videos, and hopefully you'll learn something that most dentists don't. So great.